Hey there, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Really appreciate you being here. So, I don't know if anybody caught the last video from Thursday, but it was an absolute train wreck. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do a redo on that one. If you missed it, basically my camera stopped working right before the stream, my backup battery also quit working, my thumbnail didn't upload, my screen broke and wouldn't share, and I had to use my laptop audio camera or video camera, and it was not flattering. So anyway, I didn't get to share any of the videos I want to talk about then. I gave it a more of a once over this go around and decided, well, first of all, there's a lot of videos and I've linked all those in the description. Please check those out. It's a lot of great information. I highly recommend Clear Value Tax, Sagar's monologue, the heated debate between Krystal and Sagar, and definitely Andre Jick. So Andre Jick is the video that I'm going to do now. I think I could probably just do this part and really get the gist of where I'm going at with my purpose for this video. So let's go ahead and jump on into it.
But I also want to help solve the root cause of the problem, which is that colleges have become...
I just realized I should probably preface real quick. So Biden released a student bill forgiveness or student debt forgiveness bill if you've been living under a rock and haven't heard. The thing is, the problems that are created from the student debt crisis right now are not going to be answered by this bill. Is it cool? Sure, I think, but it'll not only not solve the problem that we have, but it'll create future problems down the road. The monetary equivalent of passing this bill is the same as a $1,500 stimulus check. And the problems that kept coming from the stimulus checks, or the stimulus checks kept snowballing into bigger and bigger debt issues, and it was basically just kicking the can further down the road to deal with. Here we are a couple years later, we're now dealing with the problems of just printing tons and tons of money. So this will exacerbate that problem. Not as bad as those checks were, because this is a one-shot. I think the equivalent of it was a $1,500 stimulus check. It was the same monetary amount. So this will not solve those problems. I'll let Andre Jick get into his thing, and then I'll share my thoughts that I haven't heard anyone talking about, and it seems like the clear and obvious course of action that I think will actually solve a lot of this. So anyway, let me switch back over to Andre. By the way, I really recommend watching the whole video. It's like 13 and a half minutes, but it's really good.
Become too expensive. For that reason, I think some of the criticisms are valid. Like, for example, I didn't know this, but 92% of all outstanding student loan debt is money owed to the government. It's only 8% that's money owed to private institutions, which means I can't look at that statistic and say, well, I guess colleges are charging too much because of greedy predatory lending from companies, because most of the money is given out by the government. In fact...
All right, so on that note real quick, something else I'm not hearing anybody say too much about is that, yeah, a lot of people have 10K in student loan debt and that'll solve a lot of the issues. However, a lot of people also have like just insane amounts of debt. That 10 grand is just a drop in the bucket. For example, my girlfriend, she has a master's in psychology, undergrad and master's. And her brother has a PhD and is a dentist. They owe... I think $150,000 and $200,000 respectively. So 10 grand is like nothing. And the amount of money that they make is probably never going to pay that off. The real kicker is the interest rates, and that's what no one is talking about. So if 92% of these loans are owned by the government and they have like a 6, 7, 8% interest rate, nobody's gonna pay that off. So another good example is there's a friend of mine that was lamenting on Facebook, I think even like 3 or 4 weeks before this bill was ever announced. Like, she was just randomly venting into the wind. But she was saying that she took out a loan for $40,000 for her degree, and since that time she has paid over $40,000 on her loan and still owes some like $60,000. And that's the problem. That's the hang up. So if that could be addressed, where the interest rates could be taken out, or at least made reasonable or manageable, if the government's controlling it, then the government can be like, okay, you know what, this interest rate of like 6, 7, 8%, bit unruly, especially in this high of an amount. So maybe we'll stick with like a 1% or 2% or something like that. To which I could see people countering like, well, why not just take out a whole bunch of student loans, and then that's better than the inflation rate. That would be, better off going that route. But at the same time, like you're chaining down a whole generation. Bunch of kids that don't know jack from diddly squat took out more loans than they'll probably ever be able to repay in their lifetime when they're 18 years old. They don't know anything about anything, let alone finances. That's another video topic for another day, probably. How we're never taught in school how to, balance checkbook, take out a loan, things like that. Anyway, let me get back to Andre and what he's talking about.
The Federal Reserve of New York did a study where they found that for every $1 in subsidized lending from the government to colleges, that colleges increased their prices by 60 cents on the dollar. And this makes perfect sense because colleges have realized that what they're creating is a product that everyone needs to buy to enter society. But if they can't afford to buy it, the government is going to buy it for them anyway. So of course, they're going to charge an insane amount of money for said product. Now, the justification for those price increases, though, are sometimes hilarious. Like this $85 million lazy river, 536 feet long.
Sagar, in his monologue on Breaking Point News, he was also talking about this exact thing. So,
financed by student fees and built by the Missouri State University. Is that really necessary? Yes, it is. I wish I had one of those when I was in school. But also, I'm kind of glad I didn't because I don't think it would help me study or make me feel better about my overpriced loans. The point is this: government subsidies are not going to help solve the root cause of this problem. But I also don't think they're trying to because they've already admitted that loans received after June 30th will not be applicable to this, which is weird because if the government was to say that this applies going forward for everyone for all time, it might make a little bit more sense, but for now they just slapped a band-aid on something and called it a day. Now, I'm not smart enough to have the right answer because I don't have a team of researchers and economists behind me, it's just me, but this also doesn't feel like the right answer. As always, have a...
All right. So, he really nailed something kind of big there, which was that the colleges have become more of a corporation. That's something Krystal and Breaking Point News will talk about, and actually Krystal and Sagar both talk about this, how colleges have become a corporation that just make a bunch of money, and when it's shown that the government will foot the bill for this, that encourages them to spend more and more money. In fact, there's I don't know if I want to get into it. I don't want the stream to go too much longer. The biggest expense for colleges today is more so aesthetics and special groups. The amount of money extra that's spent on actual education, college retention, things that are useful to actually learning and getting your degree has minimal amount of money spent on them. Instead, they're trying to appeal to a large group or more and more to wealthy families and things of that nature to try to get them into the school. Per Krystal. Krystal said it in her video. Again, that link is in the description. I think it's on the list of links. It's the very bottom one. So anyway, go check that out. It's actually pretty good. And check out the video right above it. That is Sagar's monologue. So Sagar's monologue, really good. And then the link beneath that is Krystal's rebuttal to his monologue. Both of those are really good. Anyway, so the obvious thing to me that no one is talking about is that it's like, okay, if a business does you dirty, let's say you go get an oil change and they charge you $100 for this oil change, and you're like, hey now, this oil change was only supposed to be $30. It's like, well, you paid it, you signed on the dotted line, and by the way, the oil doesn't even work anymore. So it's bad oil that they put in, and you're just totally messed over. So what do? Do you talk to some random on the street like, hey, what's your name? Hey, Joe. Hey, Joe. This business over here, this car mechanic shop, they charge me $100 for a $30 oil change, and the oil change doesn't even work, and now I'm screwed. My car doesn't work. I can't get to work. I can't do all these things. Hey, why don't you give me $100 to pay for that oil change? And then you're like, what do you mean you're not going to pay me, Joe? Joe, why aren't you going to give me this money to pay for this oil change that I did? Well, how about $30? Will you give me $30 for it? What do you mean? What's wrong with you? Why are you getting upset with me because this company screwed me over? You should give me your $30 to pay for this oil change. So I know I'm being a little over the top, but the point is, if the business is the one at fault, the business should be the one to pay out. I'm actually all for student loan forgiveness if it is the college that pays for it. The stipulation would be if it's a situation where a student did not complete their degree, then they can file a motion to have their student debts repaid by the school. So what that would do is it would end up giving schools a much larger incentive to cut down on useless, needless spending, but make sure that they have funding going towards actual retention, programs that are actually good for the students to make sure that they're completing their degree. So the other thing is, it'll also make them a lot pickier and more choosier, because right now there's like this bloat in the middle of all these people that have college degrees, can't do anything with them. They're working like minimum wage jobs because it's a degree that doesn't pay for basically what they need to like both survive in life and pay these loans back. So it's just bonkers. Earlier in Andre Jick's video and multiple other videos, I talked about how college students will, on average, make some like $1 million more in their lifetime than, or like $600,000 in their lifetime more than a non-college degree student. Andre Jick in his video pretty soundly rebuttals that with just some basic math. And that it's, those numbers are actually a little disingenuous. I remember reading another article where it takes a doctor, I think it was 12 years to make the same, a doctor has to be in the workforce for 12 years before they can equate to the same amount of money as a UPS driver, or is it FedEx driver? Either FedEx driver or UPS driver, one of those two. But anyway, it's because the UPS driver, the FedEx driver, they can make 80 grand a year, have no degree, and they can start working right away. They start off, I think, at like 30 or 40,000, but if they continue working through the entire time, I think it takes them like 4 years, and they're making 80 to 100 grand a year. And all they're doing is driving a truck. Easy as that. No debt, no loans, anything that matter. Whereas the college student that went to become a doctor has insane amounts of debt, and they can't work for quite a long time. So anyway, yeah, I think colleges should be responsible for paying back the student loan debt, and I think that would clean up a lot of the issues. So tell me your thoughts. I'd like to hear what you have to say. So appreciate you watching the video all the way to the end. And again, thank you much next time, and I will see you then. So on Thursday, I'll have something else waiting for you, ready and waiting for you. Actually, if you're spitball an idea. In the comments below, I will absolutely read these and absolutely consider whatever thing you might put. If there's something that you wish would be different about the government or society in general, please advise, don't go into like woke territory, or not woke, culture war. Don't go into culture war stuff. So avoid culture war topics, but I will entertain whatever that thought is, whatever you would like to see changed, and we'll go from there. But in the meantime, stay classy.